1503, and we're going to talk about Richard, the premeditated, murdered Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier um, who was murdered in July of 2020. We received more receipts for that today, and his remains were last seen on Fort Bliss. He's missing. His remains are missing, and we're his family. We want his remains. Um, if he is murdered on Fort Bliss, and that's a military installation, a huge military installation, then we should receive his remains because we pay loads of money for security. The military is supposed to keep us secure, is supposed to keep our soldiers secure. If they're killing each other on a military installation, how are we ever going to win a war or keep our country safe or secure? Um, you know, uh, so something is very, very wrong systemically, and uh, because he was not only murdered on Fort Bliss and his remains are missing, um, even though we've been told that his remains were found in by an FBI agent in Juarez, Mexico, and they didn't want another Vanessa Guillen situation, and they had one. They had a worse one because this is an international case. We know it because Interpol was involved and the Mexican military was involved. The Mexican government was involved. Our complaint at the AG's office in Juarez was tampered with. Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia targeted our family. She's part of the Walmart mass shooting case. Um, and, so this is international. This is part of the Walmart mass shooting. This is also part of criminal trafficking because Leilani Hart targeted our son's case. Her son was Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart. They are prime suspects in the murder of Richard, along with Leilani Hart's family member, CID agent Tavita Nusa. Leilani is a confirmed convicted criminal that reported right at the time that Richard was murdered, um, which needs to be answered why she would do this. But she filed a confession right during the time that Richard was murdered, um, confessing to the FBI that her family was engaged, and she had it notarized on top of that, that her family was engaged in incest, that she was in possession in her household with child pornography, which is totally illegal. The incest is totally legal because don't forget, Dallas Hart was in uniform and is her son. Also, that a Fort Bliss dependent, soldier dependent, 7-year-old dependent of a soldier, a child, was sexually assaulted in her master bedroom by multiple members of her household years prior, that she failed to report for fear that she would be killed because her family was engaged in purchasing weapons illegally and life-threatening threats. But she is a confirmed convicted criminal with a lot of bullying and harassment, lying even to law enforcement. Before Richard was even born, this kind of activity had started in her household and in her life. And so there is absolutely motive for Richard to become a whistleblower. The situation that he was in, that Fort Bliss was unsecure, that a 14-year-old stepdaughter of a security guard was living in the barracks being pimped out on Fort Bliss. Um, there's breaches of security everywhere. And of course, the Emergency Intake Center is the biggest example of that, where we have hundreds of thousands of unaccounted for children missing. They're unaccounted for. They were unaccompanied coming into the country. Who is going to take care of unaccompanied children? Hundreds of thousands of them. How are they going to take care of them? Children are very hard work. They're worth every bit of the work, but they are very hard work, and it requires a family. It requires those that love them, but they were ripped from their families, ripped from their homes. And now it's been reported that most of them are dead. Does that matter to people? It matters to me. And matters to Team Find Richard Halliday. We have, a history of caring for those that are unaccompanied, the orphans. We have a history of caring for the orphans, and that has never stopped. And now we have hundreds of thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them, most likely dead, that were in the charge of Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss leadership were obligated to care for them, and it was very bad. The reports that we get from those like DES, Thomas Kane, it was so bad, y'all. It was so bad. And we know that there is a child abuse problem, a child sexual abuse problem. And, it's like in the last 2 decades, it really flourished. And I would say, who was the leadership? Because it always comes down to the leadership. Who have become our very, very bad failed leadership in the military, our generals. And I can name so many. We have 44 four-star generals that have betrayed us. Their leadership is egregious. In Richard's case, it's General Michael Garrett, Xavier Garrett. And, you follow that trail, it leads. Well, he was a general over the whole case with Vanessa Guillen and many more, including Richard Halliday. He was a FORSCOM general. And even the FORSCOM general right now, we really owe them a letter because of what has the security breaches have not been fixed. And the generals acting as commanding generals of Fort Bliss, Sean Bernabe, Eisenhower, and now Kurt Taylor, are absolutely criminal, absolutely need to be arrested, absolutely need to be stripped from their uniforms, from their stars. They absolutely need to lose every little benefit that we pay them. They work for us. I cannot stress that enough. And, it's like the DA office, they work for us. The AG office, they work for us. And now the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, they work for us. And yet, they are absolutely imposters. They are absolutely working outside of the law. They sit up there and pound and say, bow down to me. I get to decide on what is going to happen to your life. And yet they are lawless. They are absolutely lawless. And I have confirmation there's 5 of them, 5 lawless judges that are imposters, that are deciding the fate of the people of El Paso County. Like 90% of the cases, they're fat and happy. And yet they're lording over the defendants there in El Paso County illegally. They are lording over the people of El Paso County illegally because of the countywide jurisdiction. They've had countywide jurisdiction. That's why they have so many, such a huge percentage of the case. 90% of the cases, they have a countywide jurisdiction. There's maybe one other court that we know of that has countywide jurisdiction. And when you have countywide jurisdiction, full and total jurisdiction of the county, then those judges sitting on that court must be, according to the Texas Constitution, they must be elected. They must be subjected to the oversight of the people that they lord over. Otherwise, they are at risk at being very corrupt and very compromised. And that is why the Texas Constitution requires that a court with this kind of power, with so much power, has to be under so much scrutiny. And that scrutiny comes from having to be elected by the very people that they lord over, rule over, judge over, determine the fate of the lives of people that come before them. And yet, they have been, since 2015, illegal, acting illegally, ruling illegally, lording over illegally, becoming fat in that office, meaning with power. That's what I mean by fat, not physically. I mean with power. Illegally. Illegal power. Let me see if I'm on. It's been a pretty productive day. And with that productive day, I'm hoping that everything is working. Thank God. I'm hoping my... That's what I mean by fat. Oh, thank you. My son was killed. His father was a state trooper. Conflict of interest. Oh, your son was killed by somebody that their father was a state trooper. Yes. We just saw this DA's child get stopped without a license, right? And get caught in some lies. I don't know. It's really crazy. But I do know this for sure. I know that the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, which, if you say it enough, you can get it, that they are acting illegally, that they are imposters. And this cannot go unaddressed, because every one of these cases, including the Walmart mass shooting, including Richard's case, just about all the cases going forward are magistrated cases. And so they're being all botched. and it's compromised, and it's corrupted, and it's illegal. And that is why they targeted Richard. They magistrated, they unlawfully arrested him, they unlawfully magistrated him. And this is why this is so important, because they had a duty. And there are several people that we're finding out that absolutely knew this, and they continue to go along with this dog and pony show, this illegal dog and pony show, this mask, this, because being appointed is so much easier. Look at Bill Hicks. He is the usurper of the district attorney's office. He was also a judge, a county judge. He was appointed. He's never won an election. He's never had to go under the scrutiny of an election. And I know for this DA's office, he was a recess appointment, which means he didn't even have to go through the scrutiny of the Senate check, the Senate looking through his paperwork, because he was broke, he was in debt, he wasn't paying his bills. He had legal cases against him. He had a lot of complaints. He still has a lot of complaints against him. He has a state bar that is not impressive. He has a CV that's not impressive. So why in the world did he get appointed? Why did he get appointed as judge? Why did he get appointed as DA? Because he is clearly not the best candidate, not qualified, and also now is a usurper. Because when you get someone with such a bad CV, then they're ripe. They're to be corrupted, to be compromised, because they're desperate. If they owe a lot of money, they are desperate. And of course, he is a usurper because he didn't install properly. He didn't execute his appointment properly, because there was some reason why he didn't sign his anti-bribery statement of officer, right? There's some reason. And, was it Purchase? Was it Purchase Funeral Homes? He had conflicts of interest. Absolutely no way should he have been appointed DA. And then another, of course, open records show that he colluded, that he schemed. I guess schemed is the best word. Schemed with Bob Moore, schemed with Justin Underwood, schemed with John Briggs to take down, remove Yvonne Rosales, a duly elected district attorney. So the whole system is trying to get people in that are not qualified, that are very ripe to being compromised and corrupted, and taking down those that are duly elected, and taking them down illegally. And that group should absolutely be arrested. And so we've made complaints and complaints and complaints. We have filed, but there is a lot of other things that are going on because of the state and federal investigations that are going on. And there are, it gets real complicated because there's so much systemic, what can I say, a bowl of spaghetti, right? It's just, we've been stolen from too much. They make excuses and excuses for their negligence to open up more and more agencies and government institutions and get us to pay more and more money for more and more of these institutions, for our security, for our safety, for law enforcement, and yet we get less and less of it. Less security, less safety, less law enforcement. And so, but we have to realize that they work for us. They work for us. So can we say, you're fired? You're fired, and close down these agencies and close down, and trim it all because it's not working. It's not working. Um, and but for those that are doing the state and federal investigations into this and giving um, that institutional support. So we have a lot of trimming to do of those that are not doing their job, right? That's what we need to do. So, so thank you for coming on, for your prayers and your love, and also for your witness statements, because our witnesses have been tampered with. Our witnesses have been intercepted because of imposters. They've been bullied. They've been bullied. They've been kept. We had a witness, a active duty soldier. He was deployed and bullied, absolutely bullied by the CID, because he asked for a congressional hearing on what he knew about Richard's case. And so this cat, this is a huge cover up from the start that is now getting traction because they're calling out the criminal trafficking, the children trafficking. I think people are sick of it. And of course, we had to get through the whole COVID years. And now, with the election coming up, and anytime there's election, there's scrutiny. And so it's a very, very good thing to have elections. And these judges, these 5 judges, are illegal. They're imposters. They should absolutely leave their robe, and go home, because every action they do now, every action after all of our reports is going to be worse, because they can't say, because we emailed them, they can't say they didn't know. They can't, even though they're lawyers, right? They're supposed to be the top lawyers. They can't make any excuses now. And so, hopefully we can clean up this criminal justice system in El Paso so that we can get accountability for Richard. And of course, for all the people there in El Paso that have been wronged, and have had to go through the shambles of a criminal justice system. If you have any questions, please let me know. But we're making connections now with Michael Xavier Garrett. It's very, very interesting. We've had these connections for a while. We've had these connections, and of course, oh, if you've been paying attention, you know that Nick Brown Bell Nufziger, with many different identities, y'all. I mean, this guy, he's up to no good. He is absolutely up to no good. But because of what all he's done, yeah, he is helping with the connecting the dots between everything. The LLCs are connecting the dots between everything. When you see Nadal Baim, the FBI man, being part of a car business, car repair business, that absolutely proves that he knew Richard, and also part of Western Frontier Trading LLC that was bidding to offer $3 million, up to $3 million of ammunition to the El Paso Police Department, law enforcement. Was that green tip bullets? Was that brown tip bullets? Because we know the green tip bullets and the brown tip bullets are the real problem with the Walmart mass shooting case, right? So, and then also to know that Nadal Baim was somebody, was someone really, really big. And that's why they lie to us to cover up and say, oh, he's just nobody. He's just somebody following your Facebook. Don't pay any attention to him. He's just some kind of crazy guy. But no, he was uh, bidding to provide up to $3 million worth of ammunition to the El Paso Police Department. He was the father-in-law, he is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ATCOM, which is Richard's command. He is an FBI agent, right? He is also absolutely knows Richard because of the Mercedes. The Mercedes, that pearl Mercedes, that's from New Mexico. And, it's all coming out, and the connections with Michael Xavier Garrett to this case. Um, you know, he was not just offering prayers and thoughts and prayers. There was more going on. There was more going on, and they were up to no good. And so, our casualty affairs officer, our first one, I think we're on 5 or 6 now, um, was Josh Lyons, the asymmetric warfare officer from the asymmetric warfare group there on Fort Bliss. And he conducted some asymmetric warfare tactics on our son's case. This was illegal. We caught him in the action. Um, so they always knew that Richard was never missing, that he had been murdered. They always knew that. And they were trying to control the narrative. First, they were trying to wash their hands of the whole case by not contacting us and trying to legally maneuver Richard unjustly, unlawfully, with misinformation that he was a deserter, yet they couldn't because they knew he was murdered. And when they went to Interpol and they tampered with his his picture and presented Interpol with a tampered picture that was by our forensics determined that it was superimposed with the image of Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader, that rendered that photo non-operable in the system for facial recognition. So it was a fake out job. They never thought Richard was missing. They never thought they could find him because they offered Interpol an inoperable, tampered photo of Richard that would never ever respond to the facial recognition program that they had. Um, in a favor, would be able to identify Richard because they knew Richard was dead. They knew this was all a dog and pony show. And the fact that Richard's Interpol was a yellow Interpol also tells you that he had no criminal record and he was absolutely never designated deserter, because if he ever was, he would have been a red Interpol, because to be a deserter, you are wanted. You are a wanted felon. And he was a yellow Interpol. Always, always. He was never a red Interpol. And his FBI his record is sparkling clean. And so to be targeted as many times as Richard was in so many different ways, trying to shut him up, trying to discredit him because he was reporting on the criminal trafficking. He turned in child porn or sex tapes. We know he turned that in. That upset quite a few people. Um, because it exposed them. We know that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. We know that the smuggling of ammunition and weapons is a real problem. It's part of the criminal trafficking illegal activities is the smuggling of weapons and munitions. Is there a history of suspect of or proof that the military has members in it that steal from the arms room, steal from uh, the the warehouses on military bases and sell it? you know, so there was absolutely reports of fraud, waste, and abuse of criminal trafficking, and the magistrate court operating illegally. The magistrate's court operating illegally, knowingly operating illegally, fueled this illegal activity. And the usurpation of the district attorney's office also fueled this illegal activity. And so there's real consequences. And so we hope that now the consequences will go to the lawbreakers, to those that are illegal and illegally in their positions. And yeah, we need to get back to law and order, and so we can have a future again. And so the evil will be restrained, and we won't have these brutal murders, people feeling like they can do this. So thank you so much, everyone. God bless you. And we're still working with the whole FitFam thing. There's so many things that we're still working with, and it's you know it's a long process, but we want to make sure before the lawsuit starts that we've got it all right, um, enough that we don't have to have it all, but we have enough. And I want to give also information that we don't need Richard's remains to start a lawsuit. That's very important for people to know. So thank you so much. We absolutely want the perpetrators to face that lethal injection. Absolutely. Because this has been hell. Absolute hell. Finding out what they did to Richard. And it's so bad. It's so bad. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for your love and prayers. And also, please share. Please share this and get the word out, because that's how we're going to make progress. Thank you so much. God bless you.